specialist from France. He has
Okay.
worked as a freelance consultant and has built runson.com over the past, I guess, 1.5 years. And Runs On makes using self-hosted runners for GitHub Actions on AWS easy and accessible, resulting in both a performance increase and a cost reduction. And today we are here to learn more about how that works and what Runs On actually is. So, Cyril, did I forget anything?
No, I think it's perfect. So hi everyone, and yes, so Runzon is the project I started a while ago now, a year and a half, as you said, and yeah, I'm happy to show you how it can help you both speed up your workflows and make your costs much more affordable, let's say, for your CI.
Yeah, perfect. So maybe for those who don't know what GitHub Actions are and what they are used for, could you give us a quick recap on that?
Yeah. So basically, whenever you code something, so you push your code to GitHub or Git repository, and most often you want to run some tests or some other stuff, automated stuff. And so GitHub Action is the platform offered by GitHub to do that automatically. Whenever you push your code or on various events, you can trigger the launch of servers that will just execute whatever you want to be executed. And so yeah, they introduced that a few years ago now, and I think they have captured quite a big market now.
So is it free or how
So
is it
yeah,
the
GitHub
payment model
Actions
for that?
is it's free for public repositories. So that's how they hook you into using their service, which is really good actually, like for free. So you get access to Windows VMs, Linux VMs, macOS for free as long as you are on a public repository, and yeah, with quite a few limits on concurrency and such. And if you are using GitHub Actions, the runners on private repos, and yes, you have to pay, and they basically have a per minute billing price, and it scales according to whether you are using Linux runners or Windows or macOS, which are much more expensive.
So and where does then Runs On come into play? What is it and
Yeah,
what problems tries it to solve?
yeah. So basically, my main occupation, let's say, was freelance, and it still is for some clients. And over the years, I've basically built a lot of systems to launch tests. So first it was with things like Jenkins, then various other platforms like Travis CI back in the days, and when GitHub Actions came up, like a lot of clients have migrated to it because it's just for the ease of use of having it completely integrated with their GitHub repo already. And but yeah, over time you start, you're happy, and then over time you get more and more stuff going on there, and it starts to be quite expensive. And as well, the machines that they are using are very not top of the line. Let's say it's all the hardware from the Azure provider, and I guess at their scale, it makes sense because yeah, they have to serve like millions of jobs every day, maybe even more. And but yeah, a lot of clients they wanted faster machines basically, and possibly cheaper. And so that's when so I had a few iterations on various solutions for that, and in the end, I just decided to package everything as an easily installable stack that you can deploy on your own AWS accounts. And there you can use any instance type that AWS provides. So with much faster CPUs than what GitHub allows, and for much cheaper because then
Okay.
you can basically take advantage of the spot pricing.
Okay. So basically GitHub Actions is what's normally called like a CI/CD
Yeah.
pipeline tool where you can run automated tasks based on commits or on ever and mostly every action on your repository. And from what I understand is they offer your they offer compute capacity for your repositories. That's free for the moment you have a public repo.
Yeah.
But if you do it like internally for private repos, they charge you. And now the trick is, okay, let's do offload all the compute to EC2 instance on AWS. Is that correct?
Yes, because GitHub, it actually, so they are quite nice because they actually provide a way for us to, instead of using their servers, you can have to actually indeed offload to any kind of server. So you could just spawn a machine in your at your office, and it could act as a GitHub self-hosted runner. But yeah, obviously, if you need more scale and something more reliable, you can also just use a cloud provider. And yeah, it works with any cloud provider. In my case, I chose AWS because I have the most experience with it, and the spot pricing feature is really interesting, especially for short-lived workloads like CI jobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Do you have a demo or something that you can show how it works, how it would look like?
Yeah, I guess I will just share my screen. Let's see. Let me just find it. Yeah, so I guess what I will do, because the stack, sorry, is asking you to enter. Yeah, okay, this thing. Okay. So basically, so this is the main website, and where you can go to the installation guide. And how it works is that you just you select one of the regions that you want to deploy
Hmm.
Runzone on. And then, so you just click like, I don't know, let's say US East. I don't know if I'm connected actually. Yeah, okay. Let me take that somewhere else. So yeah, assuming you have an AWS account somewhere, you just end up on that page once you clicked on the link. And how it works is that, so okay, you give it a name, and then you just specify your GitHub organization, a license key, because we didn't talk about it, but Runzone, so it's free for nonprofits, but for commercial organization, you need to buy a license, and you have a free trial if you want. And then you can enter an email address, because Runzone will alert you about anything that goes wrong, like if a runner cannot be started for some reason, or if you want to receive a report about your costs every day. So you can do that. And then there are a lot of other options that got added over time for like networking, but basically you can just keep them as is for the default configuration. It will work great
I see.
as is. And then once you are okay, you tick that box, create stack, and you wait about 10 minutes. And what will happen is that this is a CloudFormation stack. So for those not really comfortable with that, or who don't know what this is basically a way to declaratively tell AWS which resources must be deployed. And so in Runzone case, that means there will be a service that runs the Runzone code, which receives events from GitHub to launch runners. I think we can actually view the template here. Yeah, so it will basically set up all those resources. So it might seem like a lot, but it's just a bit verbose. So it sets up networking with the best practices. It sets up security groups, some queues, etc., etc. And once it's done, you can simply, if we go to workflow, let's see, one that is, bench RM. So you can just update your workflow file, and instead of putting, let's open that. Instead of having usually your Ubuntu latest I don't know if you can really see my screen.
Yeah, it's
It's
perfect.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Usually,
just a quick
yeah.
question here. So we are on the GitHub.com
Yes.
page as usual, and we are editing like any file in any repository that's
Yeah.
already
So
there, right?
sorry. Yeah. Sure. There is the. So what happens next? And maybe should have spawned a stack before we started. But what happens during the installation guide is that okay? So we've seen this first screen where you input your stuff, then you click next, and then after a while, so 10 minutes about it, you get those outputs in your stack, and that means like one of the resources is what is called an app runner service, which is just a managed service on AWS, which costs nothing per month, basically, to run. But it's kind of it spawns a little server with an HTTPS endpoint that we can
Mhm.
reach, and so you would just click on that link here that we see in the outputs of the stack, and you would basically end up on a page that then makes you go through the flow to register runzone with
Okay.
GitHub. Okay, and the really nice thing about runzone is that it's not a GitHub app that is owned by me that you will have to register with GitHub, but it's really generated at runtime, a custom GitHub
I
app for
see.
your own account. And so once you click on that button, you're redirected to your own GitHub account. You can choose a name for that app, and then you select on which repos you want to install it.
I see. So
Okay.
the GitHub app is basically the missing link between your
Yes,
repository and your
exactly. And
AWS
that's
account.
how,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how the runs-on service is able to receive webhooks from GitHub whenever a job is spawned for one of those repositories that you selected here. And at the
Oh,
end,
okay.
you should get the
So
page
got
that
it.
tells you that everything is set up.
Okay,
And so
and
yeah,
then you
after
can
that,
just go in your workflow definition file and
yeah, and so let's say you don't have a matrix, but you usually have something like this, and you would just replace with one of the many labels supported by Runza, and by default, like you could just say runs on and runner equals to CPU Linux x64, and this would give you the equivalent in terms of number of CPUs and memory of what
okay,
GitHub provides by default.
okay,
But if you wanted, like, you have a really big compilation to do and you need like 16 CPUs, just switch the runner definition. And if you want a specific instance type or family type on EC2, you can just say, okay, I want a 16 CPU, but I really want the C7A family type, which comes with
okay.
the latest processors and stuff like that. And you could also say, okay, that's great. I'm using a lot of caching in my workflow, so I want to use a really fast cache, which is called the magic cache, um, on Ransom. And what this does is automatically it switches off the backend for your all the cache actions. It switches them so that all the files are uploaded and downloaded from a local S3 bucket instead of the GitHub Actions cache backend. And so it's much faster. It's unlimited in size, and it's
I see.
it's the retention period is higher as well, and etc. etc. You have many more labels available. Like if we have a look, I think here, yeah, you
You
can
can
go a bit
specify
crazy
everything. Yeah.
and even specify like a mix of family names. You can specify custom images. What else? Yeah, the disk configuration as well if you want a larger disk. The retry behavior, if somehow your job your instance is interrupted by AWS when you are using spot pricing.
Hmm.
Whether you want SSH access to your runner, whether you want to launch a runner in a private subnet so that you get a static IP, which is really nice if your workflows need to access services that filter on incoming IP. And yeah, the extras. So there are a few more that got added over time. And
Okay.
yeah,
So, and if you save that file and run
yeah.
the workflow,
So
then runs on will take care of spinning up the instance,
yeah,
installing
exactly.
the custom runner,
So
and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, so I'll just revert to what I had just to make sure I didn't. Yeah, yeah. So this is what is this? This one, it's a benchmark. I don't remember what it does, but let's just say I fix. Yeah, I set a name here. I guess that's possible. Commit the changes and view the runs here. And in a few seconds, so it takes a bit more time than the GitHub manage runners because it spawns EC2 instances while we are creating the job, and it doesn't have a concept of a pool of standby VMs. But
Okay.
still, like in less than 20 seconds, we got. So the benchmark is going to run for some time, but we got the runner up and starting to process things. And you see, like I test with like hundreds of jobs concurrently, and it can launch them without any problem. And so that this is also a limitation of the normal GitHub action runners. Like depending on your plan, you have specific limitation of the concurrency level that you can have, so the number of jobs in parallel that can be running. And yeah, and Runzone automatically injects some nice details about the current runner,
Okay.
like the instance type, the amount of RAM, the disk size, etc. And also some timings here, which are mainly useful, at least for me, to optimize. But yeah, you can basically know how long it took until the agent was booting on the VM. And so on EC2, it's about like from the time GitHub sends us the webhook. From the time GitHub creates the job in its own backend to the time it sends the job and we can process it and ask a VM. It takes about 16 seconds for
Oh, okay.
yeah
So this is
for the job
actually
to be
useful if you
launched.
have like compilation jobs that are huge, that require a lot of CPU or stuff, and that take longer than just a few seconds, right? Because you need to
Yes,
add the
exactly. So the yeah
overhead of creating the instances, and then you can have more powerful instances than what GitHub would offer, and
yeah
then your job
exactly.
runs faster, right? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, like basically, if your job is currently less than 1 minute long, it doesn't really make sense to use Runzone, except if you want to use the specific capabilities like the private IPs or the integration with your existing AWS networking stack and stuff like that. So but yeah, the where Runzone
I
really
see.
shines is when you have long running jobs that you really want to speed up, and when like I have many clients that got huge speed ups just because they could just increase the number of CPUs
And you're free
that they
and
could
like
use.
choosing any combination of CPU and RAM and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the spot instances.
Hmm.
Like from what I understand, those are like instances that AWS offers with huge, um, uh, huge price benefit.
Yeah.
So they cost less than the so-called normal instances. So
Yeah.
what's the deal with the spot instances?
Yeah. So spot instances, and maybe we can have a look at this benchmark that I maintain and regularly update. So what we can see on this page is basically a list of instance family and instance types. And so yeah, so the benchmark I run is basically what ends up in this field here. It's the CPU performance for each instance type. So it's quite useful. But yeah, what we can see is that the price, the on-demand price, is for this instance type is around like 0.18 something per hour. And the spot pricing, so which means like the spot pricing is basically the unused capacity that AWS resells at a lower price because it really wants to reach for 100% completion, let's say, of instant usage. And so they are happy, like if at any time they have unused capacity, if you go in and tell them, okay, I'm ready to take them, I'm ready to possibly have the instance terminated, so that a user that would really have it on demand gets it. So if you're happy to take that risk, basically they offer you a huge discount, about around 70% most of the time. But yeah, the risk is that at any time with a 2-minute notice, AWS can tell you, okay, I need this instance back, so I will just shut down what you are doing on it and reassign the instance to somebody that paid a better price. So that could be a better on-demand price or better spot price. So it's a bit black box how this how AWS handles
like a
this.
hidden auction or something.
So yeah, so it used to be a kind of auction, but I'm not sure it's still the case. But yeah, so this comes with a risk, but the discount is really it's really huge.
That's huge, and like you get 73% discount for a 5% chance of your instance being terminated.
Yeah. So this varies at any time of the day. So this is just a snapshot, basically, of the last 24 hours. And yeah, you can see that there are some that have much higher spot interruption.
Much higher risk. Okay.
And this depends on the region, of the time of day, probably many other things. But what Runzone provides you is, as a capability, is that when it requests an instance, it can, by default, Runzone is deployed on 3 availability zones. So an availability zone on AWS is basically a data center. And so within a data center, the spot interruption rate for a specific instance type is different from another data center. And so Runzone, by default, it will ask over 3 data centers, so 3 availability zones, for AWS to return the instance that is the least likely to be interrupted.
Okay.
And that's basically how the spot allocation strategies work. So this is something that is given by AWS. It's basically, you can tell AWS, okay, I want an instance, possibly of family M7A, C7A, with at least 2 CPUs, 8 gigs of memory. And then on these 3 availability zones, just return to me the instance that is the least likely to get interrupted.
I see.
And you can also choose, okay, actually, I don't care if I'm interrupted. I just want the lowest price. So even if it has, if it is more likely to be interrupted, I don't care. Just return me the instance with the lowest price. Or you can say, yeah, a mix of both, basically. So again, it's not really clear how it works. It's internal to AWS, but it's you can say, okay, I want a mix of both good price and low likelihood.
Some middle ground here. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that does not guarantee that's not interrupted. It's just like, least or less likely.
Yeah.
So can runs on help me if like to mitigate issues when it's interrupted?
Yes. So when it's interrupted, there is an auto retry that can be enabled. This is with the. No, it's not on this page, but yeah, it was on the job labels. Basically, there is a retry label that tells what should happen if I get interrupted.
Oh, okay.
And so by default, spot instances will be automatically retried once if they get interrupted, and the retry will happen as an on-demand always to
Okay. So
avoid the risk
that's
of
when you're sure that your job actually
yeah.
runs without having to spin up like 100
Yeah.
different spot instances. Okay, I
So
see
so
that.
yeah, and
That's
this
very
is
cool.
there is also like I mentioned AWS tells you 2 minutes before your instance is going to be interrupted, and Runzone is actually listening to that and reacting, and so it will try to finish the job up until the last 15 seconds before the official interruption time. So that sometimes that gives just enough time for the job to actually finish. Because yeah, if you have a job of you are currently 3 minutes in your job of 4 minutes and a half, it makes no sense to interrupt as soon as we receive the notification. So yeah, making sure that we handle the interruption time correctly also helps to finish more jobs and avoid
Very cool.
retries.
Yeah. So I've seen that parts of Runs On are like on GitHub itself. It's open source, at least partially.
Yeah.
So which parts are open source and where's the secret source? I guess that's not open source, right?
Yes. So originally, like if you go back to I guess before V2, I think. Sorry, let's have a look. When it was still written in JavaScript, yeah. So there is still like the full source code for the V1 of Runzone was fully open source. And yeah, at some point when I rewrote everything to be more scalable and with many new features, like it was a time where there were a lot of other competitors, let's say, popping up almost every month on Hacker News about
Oh,
okay,
really?
here is a way to run your GitHub Actions faster, and you can have a quick look, and it's basically those third parties here. A lot of them are less than a year old, basically, and so they were all trying to do their own thing, and I was starting to do some quite nice things with Runzone around the cache, especially. And so I didn't necessarily want to give them everything. So it's
Yeah,
more like
absolutely.
it's more like to keep the edge a bit more. So what I decided was, okay, I can keep open source everything related to setting up all the AWS resources with the CloudFormation template that we have seen
Mhm.
earlier. But the server itself, so if you go on the public repo, indeed, if you try to click on that, it will not work for you, but for me it works. And this repo is basically private, and it's only shared with the sponsors of the project. So you
Ah, I
can
see.
still access it, but you have to pay the sponsorship license. And among the perks that you get is the access to the private repo and the permission to basically even rebuild it for yourself or modify it internally for your own use
I
if you want
see.
to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it was used to be written in JavaScript or TypeScript,
Yeah.
and now it's a
And
different.
now it's
What
Go.
is it? It's Go.
Yeah.
Okay. What made you do the switch?
It was just easier for the concurrency aspects,
Yeah,
much easier
that's
to
where Go really
manage.
shines, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I always wanted to have a project in Go, so I guess it
Yeah.
made sense to rewrite it when Node was no longer cutting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to share that just to get a rough estimate. How many lines of code is that? Like how complex is it
Uh,
to
it,
build a
it
project like
yeah.
that?
It actually, like, if we it's interesting. I don't know on the top of my head how many lines of code it is right now, but like if we compare with the original JavaScript implementation, which was basically, I think, this file was probably the biggest one at 500 lines. Yeah, the other ones were really just, yeah, side things. Yeah, it has grown quite a bit. So I don't know. It's still very manageable, but it's like, I think actually the most code that is currently going on is on the satellite repositories that are open source,
Okay.
like the one for compiling the base images that are used on the runners. So it allows you to run, like, if you want to take those AMIs that are maintained with all the software that you usually take for granted on GitHub runners, you can go ahead and use them. And so, yeah, I maintain all the code for that, which takes a bit of time. So
So
have various actions.
just a
Yeah.
quick question here, like the runners or the images that you provide to actually run the GitHub actions, um, they are compatible with the images that GitHub provides. So my
Yeah.
code, if I rely on any command line tools or anything installed on a GitHub action, that would still be there, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, because this is based on it's actually open source. The runner images from GitHub.
I
They
see. Yeah.
do, yeah, they provide them as well open source. So I just forked the repo and made it compatible with AWS, because by default their repo is for Azure.
Hmm.
But yeah, anybody could do the same, but it's just quite a bit of work, and especially to make them boot fast on AWS. I did quite a lot of work on that. Um, so yeah, so actually the most of the code. So yeah, I can find the stats a bit later, but the, a lot of code that I write these days is on separate stuff like actions for getting live monitoring of your jobs, or to get yeah, snapshots of specific directories from your
I see.
runners, stuff like that.
Cool. Are you the only one working on that project, or are there any other contributors?
Yeah, so until last week, I was the solo developer of this,
Okay,
and
great.
yeah, I just onboarded a new developer. It just started this week. So
Oh, very cool. So Ranson is growing.
yes,
Yeah,
we can
very
say
cool.
that. Yeah.
That brings me to another question. Like you already mentioned it. It started like based on your own needs and some of your customers. But like, how did you market it? How did it find its first
Mhm.
the first customers beyond those that you already knew?
Yeah. I think it started on what was still called Twitter at the time, where I was just tweeting, okay, yeah, the GitHub is slow, like tweeting some I think early demo of what would become Ransom, like the speed bumps that we could have by switching to AWS instances. And when I released the first version, yeah, I think it was still on Twitter, and yeah, I got a few people interested, and I think I had especially like from a large company in France, somebody that ended up being the largest user of Ransom.
I
So
see.
they started using it very early because they had a lot of trouble with their own on-premise solution. No, actually, it was not on premise, but they were using Circle CI at the time,
Okay.
and it was expensive, and they had a lot of. They wanted to migrate away and go to GitHub Actions, but the pricing of GitHub Actions and the speed was not enough, so they had to look for self-hosted solutions, and they ended up on the very early version of Ransom. And yeah, after that, so yeah, I guess at the beginning Twitter, then Reddit, because quite early on I provided the benchmark because for my own use I wanted to know who was the fastest, right,
Yeah,
among the
those
providers.
benchmark posts, they are like always
Yeah,
going through the roof on Hacker News and Reddit, I guess.
yeah. So I think on Reddit it had a lot of success. And so yeah, I did this, and I still maintain it. And over time, bad news is that so on the y-axis is the CPU performance, and so we can see that the newcomers are actually faster in terms of raw CPU speed because the AWS lineup is becoming quite old for x64 instances. But the day when they will introduce new family types, should be back
Yeah,
up.
and I've seen that some of those competitors are using heads now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I did some benchmarks on my own, and Hetzner is incredibly uh, always being at least top three of
yeah,
all the cloud providers I tested. It's I can't even think about how they offer that for that competitive
yeah.
price.
It's like the Hetzner provider is probably one of the best. Like,
Yeah,
and especially for workflows that are not too mission critical. Like,
yeah,
I mean, they they mostly run for what 30 minutes, 1 hour at most. So the risk of uh, getting your server crashing is not as bad as if it was a production service. So yeah, the bare metal instances at Hetzner, and that's, I think I have an article on this, like self-hosted runners. I don't remember, but yeah, I even have an article like how to set up your own Actions Runner Controller, which is the project from GitHub that is supposed to help you set up self-hosted runners if you want instead of run them. And in my example, I specifically use I think Hetzner. Yeah, here. Hetzner. So it was not even bare metal server, but bare metal would be even
yeah,
better. And yeah, but the performance that you get for the price is really good. The downside though is the network,
yeah. It's mostly just
because
Germany, right? Maybe
yeah,
a little bit of Finland.
they have US data centers now, but still the interconnection is far less good. Well, it's worse than what you can get with AWS.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and so the raw CPU performance is really good for the price, but the networking is not that good. So, and in your jobs, most often you have a lot of like caching, save and restore going on, Docker pushes to some external services, etc. So actually, the for some types of jobs, you can be a lot slower on Hetzner machines
Yeah,
than if you were
absolutely.
on AWS or maybe even Azure.
Yeah,
So
but
yeah,
still
it's
they
a
are
trade-off.
quite impressive. Yeah, very cool. So, what are some of the features on your roadmap? Actually, what can we
Yeah,
expect to be runs on? Because
yeah,
when I saw it, I was like, okay, maybe that's some of those great projects that's written runs, and then it's mostly done. But I think you have a lot of ideas in your mind, right?
yeah. So I thought it would be done a year ago, basically. I thought like, I mean, how hard can it be, right? Yeah.
That
Like,
that's how good stories start. Yeah.
yeah, my expectation was that after 6 months, I would basically have the final version and just have to maintain the beta, and that's it. But actually, yeah, ideas kept coming in, and user requests as well, like a lot of features around security, compliance, and stuff like that. So over time, yeah, it grew. That made the code base grew a bit as well. And so in terms of roadmap, so most recently, that was around the cache performance. I just added a benchmark, I think, today. And that shows that, yeah, basically have one of the best cache performance among all providers. So that was the last thing that came up. And then the next things will be around monitoring, because currently, like, you don't really know, and even on the normal GitHub Actions, but you don't really know if the instance type that you have chosen is not just over provision for what you're doing on it,
Okay.
like in
Yeah.
terms of memory or CPU usage. So they are already, like, Runzone already integrates with CloudWatch to ship some metrics.
Hmm.
But like disk performance, memory usage, network, stuff like that, it would be really nice if you could just have them right in the job, right? I think.
I
And
see.
so I've been like, this is just development stuff, so I don't even know if I will be able to find. But since you asked, let's see. Something like, so I'm envisioning to have something like this. You see, at the end of your job,
Oh,
in
well,
the
that's in
in the
line in
posts,
the output. That's so cool.
yeah. So you would have things like that showing graphs, so ASCII graphs of memory usage, disk usage as well, etc., and a direct link to CloudWatch if you want to dig more into it. And so, yeah, this is still. So yeah, I think next week we should have this. And the next thing is to speed up Docker builds. Let me see. Yeah. So to speed up Docker builds, the problem is that if you build some Docker images, a lot of time it's very hard to cache the layers, and if you
Hmm.
do cache them using standard methods like using an ephemeral registry or shipping to the GitHub Actions cache, which are all supported by Runzone. But the problem with that is that if we take one that was, I think, the cold cache, yeah. Where is it? Here. Yeah, so there is an export phase, basically where it has to compress all the layers and ship them to the store where you want to cache them. And yeah, and that phase, like in that specific case, when you rebuild the image from scratch the first
I
time,
see. Yeah.
it takes about 5
6
minutes
minutes
or
or
six
so.
minutes just to do this. So it's 6 minutes after it has finished building your Docker image, and so that's 6 minutes too long. And so with the snapshot feature, what will happen is that uh, we'll basically snapshot at the block level the entire, for instance, varlib Docker folder,
Hmm.
and restore it on the next run, so
Ah, I
that
see.
the most of the things are cached, and you don't get that exporting phase that is taking a lot of time.
Oh, that's a clever solution. Yeah, very
So yeah,
cool. So, yeah. Anything else from your side? Like, I think we covered a lot. Like, we covered GitHub
yeah, I
Actions, we
think I
covered
could.
self-hosted runners. I think you could go on for
Yeah, I
like
could talk
the
about it
entire
for
evening.
very long. But I guess the documentary is quite comprehensive. So yeah, I will just mention that on top of Linux runners, native for ARM and x64, you can also run Windows and GPU workflows, which are, I think, GPU. I'm not even sure if it's probably supported on higher tiers in GitHub. And yeah, this is the only solution that is truly self-hosted. So the control plane and the data plane, so everything is hosted in your
in
one
your
infrastructure,
AWS account.
which is, I think, a really good thing, both for the users, because yeah, everything stays private, and they don't have a middleman tax to pay. They just pay AWS directly. And both for me, because I don't have anything to manage, right? I just
Yeah.
manage the software products and the releases, and yeah, some customer support. But I don't have to like, yeah, stay up at
You
night
don't have to manage
to, yeah,
infrastructure,
to
right?
manage infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Like the easiest way, I guess, to learn about Runs On is the website. That's runs-on.com, right?
Yeah.
Is how do people reach out to you? Where are you on social media?
So I used to be on X Twitter. It's CROHR. So I can still be reached there. I'm possibly on Blue Sky, I think, cyrilrohr.com, which is my personal website. But yeah, I guess LinkedIn and email are my main points of contact right now. But yeah, on ransom.com, you have a direct link to email me for any questions you may have.
Okay, sounds perfect. So, and also I've seen on the documentation page, you have like mastering GitHub Actions section. For those of you who don't know much about GitHub Actions yet, I think that's pretty awesome. And I will also release a mini guide on GitHub Actions in the next days.
Okay,
So
nice.
if you're interested in that, just
Yeah,
stay tuned. Yeah, then Cyril, thank you so much for showing us runs on. That was quite impressive, and thank you for sharing some of the details like behind the closed repository. That was also nice. Yeah, thank you very much.
yeah. Thanks to you, and see you next time.